Many moons ago, Ratliker 1917 on Tumblr wrote, "The age-old figure of the internet troll has been gradually rendered technologically obsolete by an online environment wherein individuals are algorithmically encouraged to troll themselves by interpreting anything they read in as bad faith as possible, in order to get extremely mad." Why is the internet an insane asylum? Especially so in our highly divided and politicized climate. You may have had some interactions online that left you extraordinarily baffled. As a regular video gamer that's touched some of the most toxic cesspits and corners of the internet, I've watched behavior I would only find common on anonymous image boards slowly spread across the greater netscape, coagulating into seemingly being the default mode of communication and behavior you can expect in online spaces. Even our very public-facing social media now only seems to act as another battleground, where anonymous profile pictures and bot farms drive rage bait and hatred for engagement and interaction farming. To put it bluntly, the internet has become a pseudo-widescape insane asylum, no longer an escape from meat space. Even the most hidden away hatches and interconnected groups, subforums, spaces, sites locked deep away in cyberspace, not even those spaces are entirely safe from prying eyes or an interjection from an other entity. Everyone is, more or less, everywhere, and because so much traffic is quartered through the same spaces, you're going to see everyone everywhere. Ergo, you're going to see everything. And because most human beings seem to have a negativity bias, both in what they spread and choose to remember, and choose to interact with, the internet has become a wholesale negative place to be. And there is wiggle room, sure, there are ways to have fun on the internet in ways that are innocuous, healthy. It's even still possible to meet people with similar interests, make friends, and generally have a good time. But the rate of cyber stalking, harassment, hacking, exploiting, doxing, everything seems to sharply rise year after year, and the places we choose to engage socially on the internet seem to have less and less protection as time goes on. As it stands at the time of writing, if you get baited into saying a number on Discord, someone can edit their previous message and get your account permanently banned. Which is just as ridiculous as it sounds. AI-powered moderation seems to do nothing but scrape regular users off the surface, while the people who actually need to be hardware banned skirt through every single protection put in place that's meant to stop those individuals from continuing to exist as a public nuisance. Normal people, or whatever accounts for a technologically inclined or aware normie in this day and age, are consistently punished for existing, while AI overlords do nothing about the person on Twitter that's been stalking you and calling you slurs for the past 5 months. The internet has a negativity bias, something we all already know, but those willing to bend or break the very rules of the internet will always find more freedom than the ones trying to live inside them. There's no such thing as social grace, no such thing as shame for anonymous profiles, and no such thing as sanity for a world that you do not have to physically be in to interact with. So to say that the internet as a whole has become its own digital hellscape is not entirely untrue. Half of the people rage baiting you could be bots, and we no longer have easy ways of telling because they act just like us. And when the first person gets sentenced because another party AI-generated clear video evidence of them committing a horrendous crime, we will cry, and we will also know that the threshold has been passed long ago, even before now. There are no longer very many lines to cross at all. The dead internet theory stands next to the insane asylum theory. Everything is fabricated, nothing is real, and nobody is sane. So let's talk about it. I have conceptualized, theorized, and researched, having been existing on the internet basically my entire life, and now have my own cadre of thoughts as to how we arrived at this point, a concept that's almost a mimetic hazard, and that I'm in some cosmic sort of way cursing myself for even trying to speak honestly about, because honesty is highly discouraged nowadays. The first thing that we are going to talk about, to set a baseline for the rest of this video, is The accusation hypothetical. If you put out a controversial take into the world anywhere, a Twitter post, a Tumblr comment, a Reddit reply, a Discord message, something you said in real life that someone else happened to record and catch you on video saying, you are quite simply rolling the dice. There is a non-zero chance that anything you post, no matter how simple, no matter how innocent, will get wrapped up in someone's brain and cause them, in turn, to turn into an obsessed orbiter targeting you by scrolling through your entire online history, doxing you, drafting a doc containing as much information on you as they could possibly find, spreading rumors and lies about you to people you know, poisoning your online presence and identity, which bleeds into the real world because most of our internet personas are intercorrelated with our meat space selves at this point. It doesn't matter if the lies even sound true because people who have already decided they dislike you, if anyone, will simply believe them regardless. And people who have never heard of you will have no reason not to believe what they hear because the internet runs on an eternal hate engine, and a massive number of people are always looking for the next thing or person to point fingers at, no matter if the evidence of you doing anything has any credible ground to stand on. Don't get me wrong. I believe in believing in victims. I believe wholeheartedly that there are plenty of people online who have used the power they might have over others for ill-found gain, causing great damage to other human beings. This extends outside the internet to Hollywood, to politics, to real life, to anything. Bad people do in fact exist. I'm not going to sit here and argue that fact, but I guess more what I'm saying is I also believe in having a basis of information to believe in accusation. It's impossible to quantify if the number of false accusations and bad actors in the current online social climate outnumbers or even rivals the amount of genuinely harmful people out there. But the fact of the matter is, there's a million shades of both for these kinds of characters, and you never know who you're going to hear about, who you're hearing it from, and if you can justify what's being said about the other person. Lives have already been ruined on both sides of this equation for many different reasons. It's not like gossiping is anything new, but as time goes on, the many ways to fabricate evidence only grow stronger. We at one time had inspect element, fake screenshots, so on. Well, Photoshop came out, we could still work with that. AI voice cloning came out, which is scary enough. Then the first thing ChatGPT users did when Sora 2 AI video released is make hyper-realistic real-life videos of the ChatGPT CEO Sam Altman in blackface, indistinguishable from something recorded in reality with just a prompt. These things barely have guardrails, and for the guardrails that do exist, nefarious users will find ways to circumvent them or simply perform these actions locally. Elon Musk's AI video creator Grok and Grok's Imagine seems to have absolutely no restrictions on creating AI moving videos of people undressing or acting inappropriately, which can be transfigured upon any subject in any environment. We have already had the common idea that we can't trust everything that we see on the internet, but there has quite literally never been a worse time to have eyes, ears, and a Wi-Fi connection and a belief in truth. And I don't even have a solution. I'm not trying to make any kind of point, really. I'm just making the basic statements and observations that every false accusations, every quote-unquote cancellation that takes a simple issue blown out of proportion, every non-justified witch hunt that makes it even harder for people to find, figure, and rebel against the genuinely evil, it's dangerous to be anybody, even a nobody. Anybody can be targeted, and I'd wager in the next few years any random user has a likely chance to be the target of some kind of video scam or digital attack on their identity in some way. In the past, even years before things like Sora, I once ran into a group of ne'er-do-wells on Instagram, of all spaces, that would spam me slurs, hate content, use the primitive AI video programs available at the time to harass me. And even now, I am barely an online presence or a creator. I don't make enough to pay the bills. My videos still average like below 100 views. I just do this shit for fun. Although I've had a few videos, get a little bit popular. I was even smaller than this in those years where I was attacked. So it doesn't even really matter how many eyes you have on you. It matters that you have eyes on you at all. Although, understandably, the bigger you get, the bigger chance you have of this kind of situation happening to you, but still. So I guess this section of the video, this preamble is just to state, It is a tough world out there, and nothing any of the people in charge of the grander internet spaces or AI technology is doing, nothing they're doing, makes it better for normal people. A lot of the time, I feel oddly gaslighted by the rest of the world, seemingly making it as easy as possible for bad actors to take advantage of these programs and use them against others. Some technology just doesn't justify its own existence, especially the way the world is right now. But it is already here, and we are already living with it, and we can assume it's not going anywhere, and we can assume it's going to get worse because nothing is stopping. It's like everybody at the top of the chain have all turned into accelerationists, and we're trying to make it as worse as possible for the average human being before the Earth explodes itself, I guess. And on a greater scale in relation to the rest of the video, these things have only served to drastically worsen the situation. A self-contained, intercollapsing sphere of hate and casualized, normalized hate speech, mental illness. Now that we've reestablished an understanding of the current modern digital world we live in, now we have a chance to talk about the actual psychological climate, a more basic look at why people on the internet are the way they are. Now, I may be generalizing vague groups of people or certain types of individuals, but I'd like to preface that this is not, despite what it seems, the majority of internet users. I would say most of the people on Earth are more or less normal, sane, rational thinkers. Well, maybe. This is a very hard pill to swallow because of the aforementioned negativity bias. The loudest and craziest make everyone else look bad all the time. Not that I'm trying to tout myself as the pinnacle of normalcy, as I'm far from a normie myself, I suppose, but I mean the normal, sane, rational thinkers, in the sense that most people aren't fantasizing about violence because a stranger thinks differently than they do about innocuous topics. I like Dr. Pepper. If you don't like Dr. Pepper, I do not want to ruin your life just because you don't like Dr. Pepper, even though I like it. That is the bog standard. But there are people who would want to do that. There are people who can be so vile, can be so cruel, can even be so short-sighted that they would wish your life to be ruined or even simply over because you dislike a thing that they like, or vice versa. It's no big secret to say that there are crazies out there. There were crazies out there before the internet, but the world is full of cruel, violent, or otherwise antisocial, hostile individuals, but the internet makes them so much easier to find. If you see someone that looks shifty on the street or in a public environment, you can simply ignore them or steer yourself away from them. Uncomfortable situations in real life are tied to someone's actual physical presence, and that way you can both defend yourself if you need to, and it deters unscrupulous individuals from acting, because they know they're both exposing who they are as a person and opening themselves for genuine real-world retaliation. You can't be a keyboard warrior in real life, but on the internet there are no safeguards. There is no institution to sell or lock these people in. Even after they've become the digital equivalent of a public disturbance, the crowd that may shame them is made up of faceless usernames and random profile pictures, who are all likely demeaning an individual that's already anonymous in the first place. You may have people at your school, place of work, even your neighborhood, that you typically learn to avoid. But that's just it. You may have your own personal list of the distrustworthy, but that's just your town's worth of possibly dangerous or hostile people. On the internet, you are trying to avoid the hostile people of every town, every city, every county, every country, everyone, everywhere who has a Wi-Fi connection. Your city may not contain someone who would dox and attack you over your opinions on their favorite cartoon, but a city on the other side of your country, or even the world, may have that individual, and they may find a post that you made about it. So the psychological climate of the internet and its more globalized, unified presence is already exposing you to potentially dangerous people that you never would have met otherwise. But that's livable, right? That's life. It's part and parcel of existing in the world or in a digital space. There are bad people out there. And luckily, although they become easier and easier to circumvent, there do exist features to block, to mute, and in more and more online spaces are instituting things like IP bans, hardware bans, poison bans, all these very scary sounding things in place for the regular action of simply deleting an account. So theoretically, it becomes harder for people to come back after they've already had the gates closed to them for some kind of community or space. It's becoming harder for the average person to circumvent a ban just by making a new account. but that doesn't mean that they can't find a way to, regardless of how they were banned in the first place. And on top of that, the uncountable number of hostile entities, blank faces reaching across the void, we have yet to demonstrate and acknowledge the radicalization of the normie when it comes to hate. Even people who aren't super familiar with how the internet works outside the same like 4 or 5 social media platforms they already doom scroll on every day, someone who isn't very acquainted with the internet or is typically already a hostile person in real life have increasingly high chances of becoming a keyboard warrior, induced both by their lack of understanding regarding common manners both in and outside the internet and the current politically charged and polarized state of the world. Okay, that was a lot of words. The simplest way I could summarize this idea, I would posit there has never been a greater amount of people on the internet at once using slurs, brandishing hate speech, or telling people to kill themselves. The most radical insults have become the standard. Simple banter is replaced by the most nefarious, dastardly, disgusting things that the human brain could conjure. Because when it comes to internet slap fights, you're not banking on your ability to actually intimidate or even physically harm a person. You're banking on the ability of the words you use to either inflict genuine psychological damage or to rage bait the other person until they self-implode. Although I understand it's not a good look, for the sake of clarity, I was an avid 4chan user throughout high school. I have lived most of my life with unrestricted internet access. I have learned how to be better, normal, whatever, but I was induced into the digital world at a very young age, which likely caused irreparable damage to my psyche. Although, again, I consider myself somewhat well-adjusted on the other end of it all, but I say that to demonstrate and have you, dear viewer, understand. I've seen what amounts to the worst of it. I've lived through the area as an impressionable teenager of shock content, depreciating humor that mostly focused on punching down, near sadistic levels of humor that served no purpose other than to be demeaning. I never quite engaged in making or propagating this content, but I saw it. I was there. I was in those spaces, and it was not a good thing for me to be in those spaces, but I am okay. I'm okay on the other end. But I was there. I saw it. And I will tell you, similar to what I've said earlier, I have never seen more reverberations of things like 4chan lingo spouted across the internet than I do now. The world has quite simply never been more terminally online, and internet behavior that might have been considered extreme, strange, or even niche is completely widespread. Bust open. There are no more secret clubs. The greater impact these spaces have had on the rest of the modern-day internet cannot be understated. I would even go to say, if you're assuming that a level 1 internet user is a boomer that only uses Facebook, a level 2 internet user that only visits a few sites is already learning how to suicide bait the first person that disagrees with him. Like, this shit is coming fast and early. This shit is drilled into your average internet goer. It has slowly transfigured itself into becoming the default, and we're seeing the indoctrination of the youth into being shining examples of this insane digital behavior by the general miasma that is the modern day digital hellspace. Is everyone like this? Again, no. But everyone will experience it. Are even most people like this? Not 100%. There are plenty of people that just wade through the pot of boiling shit and tar and come out the other end without any of it sticking to them. But we are who we pretend to be, and our environments will always impact us and normalize certain behaviors, and an impressive number of internet users have been corralled into these random extreme corners of the internet, of every political persuasion, not just left, not just right, of every thought process, things taken to absurd degrees, because absurdity is the only thing that can exist, is the only thing that can make sense anymore, and once they've wrapped themselves in these communities, the peer pressure only makes them get worse. It's like every other person on the internet you interact with has already engaging in their own self-induced downward spiral. Fitting in becomes digitally violent as long as you parade the flag of your chosen army. Every other person you interact with on Twitter has already decided the molehill they're willing to die and kill on. In the sense, this is also what fosters irony culture and cringe culture. Two sides of the same coin, really the same thing. In a basic sense, nobody is allowed to like anything anymore. Not really, unless it's something that is wholly socially acceptable and has already been completely widespread, and even then be wary. Irony culture supposits this by using irony as a shield or a defense mechanism. They're Schrodinger's fandom. Do they actually like something? Are they allowed to like anything? They themselves don't know, but they certainly won't tell you or themselves. These people exist in a superposition of knowing what they like but refusing to engage with it. Not honestly, at least, only accepting brief glimpses of it in a vacuum while retaining a reality where they have no actual interests or hobbies. Because if they don't do or like anything, they themselves can't be targeted or made fun of. These people are blank slates, entirely of their own design, entirely of their own decision, and mainly do this to avoid, again, having to deal with other people not liking them for the things they like. If they refuse to ever like anything, then they don't have to have a personality, which means other people can't dislike their personality, so they don't have to feel insecure if they're not a human being. So they will never have a real friend group of people who have similar interests and hobbies. They will never have a community or even a single person that they can talk to each other honestly on even ground. Their relationships are fake, and their entire life is basically one big self-serving lie because they're forever too afraid to actually open the door and start living the life they envision on any level. They use irony and punching down as defense mechanisms, never truly liking anything until they advance to terminal status where they're completely irony poisoned, destined to never ever be a real human being. And on the flip side, they engage in cringe culture, where this massive crowd of faceless NPCs point fingers at anyone they think is weird or not normal, as in they have hobbies and things they enjoy and aren't afraid to interact with them. If you are truly happy or passionate about anything, that's cringe and you should feel bad. You are never allowed to express joy. You are never allowed to smile, laugh, or do anything in any way that isn't casualized or punching down at others. Wanting to uplift others, or even uplift yourself, especially uplift yourself, is cringe. Stop being happy. Stop having hobbies. Stop doing anything you want to do. And then, and only then, can you fit into society and be another faceless NPC that barely exists in their own life. Irony culture, cringe culture, these two stepping stones, only an inch away from each other, really the same thing, make up the greater ecosphere of the digital space. They're cornerstones of the digital information and reaction market. It's what led to the alt-right rise with SJW-owned compilations and the general odd furry hatred that exists. It's a concept that exists in real life, but is again something wholly exasperated by the internet as a whole, and it becomes the default method and mode of interaction. When a nobody sees somebody trying to be somebody, they feel insecure. So the crab in a bucket mentality says, how dare they enjoy doing something? I need to leave a mean comment on this post, and that'll teach him for trying to be a human being. You can have all the fame, money, talent, and success in the world, but it won't save you from the pit you dug, and it won't free you from the jail you built around yourself. You alone must make the active decision to be human, to enjoy things, and if you decline, you'll wither away and never truly even begin to enjoy living your life regardless of what you have around you, and the brief catharsis you get for chiding others for actually engaging with their interests and hobbies will never amount to anything but a brief respite when faced with the crushing knowledge that you have not lived your life a single day you have been alive. And somehow, again, this is the default psychological climate. This is the default. I would still venture that this is the majority of the people on the internet, if not the world at large. Not everyone is the schizophrenic in a corner pointing knives at you, but I would still say that the default is still at zero. On one hand, you have your dangerously overpassionate people who can't figure out what's really important in life that will dox you for not liking the same cartoon that they like, and then on the other hand, you have the majority terminally nothing that relentlessly calls you slurs and cyberbullies you over your attempts to be a human being and have hobbies. You may know a few people who act like either of these examples in real life, but remember, in real life, you're contesting the few people around you at any given time. On the internet, a place devoid of the meaning of time or space, you are contesting every single one of them that exists at any given moment all of the time, and you will never know who is going to see what you post. That, in totality, is the current psychological climate of the modern digital world. But the meaning of digital becomes so vague. As the future goes on, our digital personas become more and more tied to our real-life selves until they are inseparable. So now we have to talk about personal responsibility and the lack of privacy. The concept of privacy has been slowly watered down time and time again, year after year, as the digital hellscape makes it harder to be anything other than a loud, blaring advertisement of who you are, what you do, where you are, and so on and so forth. A pit that many of us, including myself, have completely fallen into. Don't trust everything you see on the internet, says the boomer that takes in AI slop they see on Facebook like it's a meth. Don't get into strangers' cars, we used to say, as we now order strangers to pick us up in their cars for money. These aren't new ideas, but it's a notable chain of events that have led us to where we are today. Our online personalities are now just another part of us we have to sell to people. Gone are the days of using different usernames for different sites, protecting our personal information, or even being able to shield our basic identifiers like IP addresses without multiple layers of protection. There are some that still manage to remain more or less anonymous, but it's not nearly as easy as it used to be, both because societal convention has changed the bare bones level of privacy you're expected to have, and because it's never been easier for bad actors to personally identify you regardless of your attempts to shield your identity. We post pictures and videos of ourselves online with our real name attached to them all the time. Which, as an aside, get fed into these AI programs as training. Gone are the old days of protecting our private information. The internet will know through my 20-minute TikTok ramble video my name, occupation, or job, a vague area where I live, potentially what my car looks like, if not just my actual address and homestead, and what's going on in my life. We surrender our personal information because it's become the bog standard, and with the amount of untrustworthy individuals already online, if you're the type of person that doesn't surrender this information outright, you may be looked at as untrustworthy yourself. Just as much as you may not want to make a friend in real life if that friend never tells you their name and wears a mask everywhere, we now instinctively fear direct messages from anonymous accounts with generic usernames, and once it's out there, it's really hard to come back around to some level of privacy unless you're willing to desiccate your entire online identity thus far, get rid of all the friends you've made, and possibly even move from your actual real-life home. Once you're out there, you're out there. Once you make a post on some username, it's automatically archived in 50 different ways. Your data, anything corporations can learn about you to help target your advertisements, is valuable and everyone wants it. The collective digital world has been gaslit into believing that your online identity is supposed to be an extension of your real-life identity instead of being separate entities. Not everyone lives like this, of course, but I would say a great many people do, especially dipshits like me who still hold out hope that they'll get enough AdSense and attention online to possibly help pay their bills, whereas I've already attached my name and face to my online persona and cannot separate them. In real life, we don't walk around with a name badge, unless you're at a job that requires it. We don't give out personal information to strangers, and, well, by golly, we sleep with our doors shut. Somehow, despite not being in the real world, it's much easier to lose your privacy in the digital world. There is no more basic digital hygiene, and when you do make a mistake, you can't wash off the effects. Once something is learned, it stays learned. If it's not some random online individual keeping tabs on you, big tech will keep documents of info on you as an individual. Multiple different companies have their own datasets on your name, identity, what sites you visit, what your interests are, and so on, and they sell their folders to each other to cross-reference information to target you with advertisements and services they think you're more willing to buy. That's not even so much as you need to be fooled into clicking an IP grabber. People fool themselves all the time, and if you can be stalked through the basic information you've already given out publicly, as in sharing a username across multiple sites, then you can simply expect to be stalked, and perhaps justifiably. Not everybody feels like keeping a long list of different usernames and passwords across multiple sites, different avatars and profile pictures. Not everybody wants to be constantly running a VPN and the issues that could bring, or even set up a virtual machine. Even today, when performing background checks, corporations can pull your email, get a verified list of every single account you've made across any website that used that email. And today we see more and more of these services get put in the hands of the common man. Let's look at it from my own personal perspective, just to give maybe a different look into this experience. I am a delusional content creator that hopes to make actual money from my content one day. I want to get views, I want to get AdSense, and I apologize posthumously for any ad you've had to sit through to watch any of my videos. Them's the breaks. I have bills to pay and I need to eat. But in order to achieve that pipe dream, I have to essentially mass market myself as an internet personality to as many people as I can at one time. And even despite my relatively small status as a creator, I've still achieved more total unique views on my videos than people I've met in real life, than people I know in my hometown. So even making these stupid silly little YouTube videos, most of which get sub 100 views, is putting myself at risk. Really, if you're trying to be an online personality at all, regardless of what you make or post, you're exposing yourself to the exact same risks we talked about earlier on a grand scale every single time you post something. And even if you're keeping up good OPSEC hygiene, you still just kind of have to assume that it's more of a when, not an if. So, just on a blanket statement, if any indecent images of me somehow hit the airwaves, the least I can do is ask everyone to be nice about it and pretend that it's bigger than it is. Now that we've covered the ways that the internet is broken in the last few sections, what if I told you the system isn't broken? As in, the internet as we know it, the current hellscape that is our digital world, is not broken at all in any way, shape, or form. What if I told you that the internet, as designed, is working as intended? Okay, let's put on our tinfoil hats. I'm going to make a lot of possibly disjointed statements in this section that may or may not be true. Some are intuited, some are crackpot conspiracy, but others are just basic observable facts about our reality and the internet in its current state. And which ones are which, you can decide for yourself. You choose what you can believe in here. But first, hearkening to our previous section, why are people so addicted to breaking their own basic privacy safety rules? Why do we give so much of our information out so freely? The simplest answer, most often the correct one, which you have already thought of, is that we don't have a choice. For every social media you participate on, you are signing an invisible contract with 100 different corporations, if not more, from around the world to learn as much about you as possible. There's request data and delete data buttons, but very rarely do you have any kind of option on sign up that just says, hey, don't track my shit in the first place, because they all do it by default. The more of you that you put out there, the easier you are to attack, and we are regularly sold the idea of things like content creation can be a quick buck or a golden ticket out of working menial labor if you make videos that end up going viral. But, of course, as we know, as I definitely know, it's a rigged game. Surely there are creators with backbones and spines that did everything through sheer hard work, but for all that hard work they did, it was still like 50% luck, purely and only, and they'll tell you that themselves. And this isn't said to disparage small-time creators such as myself, or even demean big creators and imply that they didn't earn their views. On the contrary, I've seen incredible art, animations, songs that deeply touched me, made me feel things, emotions that all got swept under the rug and chewed to pieces. And then we have to think, well, there's a whole lot of slop out there, popular slop, AI slop, or otherwise Spider-Man Elsa videos. Sometimes the stuff we see getting the most attention seems as if it required the least effort. I mean, God, the Kardashians are famous, so, well. But if you're thinking about that, that's your first mistake. You're not supposed to understand it. The mythical, destructive, terrifying, disgusting beast known as the algorithm, a fickle god that switches day by day, a wild animal that you can ride but never control. The algo decides what is popular. The algo decides what gets views. The algo does not care for hard work, dedication, or elbow grease. The algo sees what gets attention and boosts it, regardless of its quality or intention. There is no quality control to the algo. There is no checks and balances. And because we're more likely to comment on something we disagree with than something we actually like, the algo will always boost content designed to rage bait you, like scientifically diluted content streams meant to make you feel negative emotions because you interact with it. Oh my god. It does not matter if the algo thinks that you would actually like what it shows you, it just knows that you'll probably leave a comment, like or dislike the video, maybe even get into a flame war and add a few of your friends for backup. Quality does not matter, impressions do, interactions do. That's what generates views, money, ads. Twitter is probably the worst case of this. Every other post on Twitter's For You is someone rage baiting, or it's something Elon personally decided needs to be on everyone's screens, since he paid $44 billion to use Twitter as his own personal propaganda machine, instead of spending that $44 billion on combating world hunger, creating affordable housing, charity, or, well, really anything other than giving him a place he can jerk himself off on to the greatest audience possible. I hope it was worth helping Trump get elected again instead of spending half of what it cost to buy Twitter to help end hunger in America. But that's the thing. Artificial scarcity demands that people starve. Artificial value demands that gyms be expensive regardless of their population. Artificial money, both in the sense that capitalism is made up of a bunch of bullshit values nobody really understands and only serves as a vehicle to keep people in power, and in the sense that cryptocurrency is literally fake money and is the greatest scam we've seen in the modern digital world that those same rich people keep pushing onto normies. One more pyramid scheme after another, one more castle built on lies and false promises, more talking heads in suits and ties who get paid fat checks to deny reality in front of millions of Americans. Okay. Maybe I'm getting over my head, maybe I'm getting a little off topic, but that's kind of just it. Life isn't currently designed on a grand scale to be enjoyable. We're strung along with little treats to break up the monotony and bullshit that we're pushed through, and the algo is a perfect representation. Is it better in some places than others? Sure. Is it still mostly bullshit wherever an algorithm is? Yes, because the algorithm can never know who we are as human beings, it can only understand what makes us interact. So life is designed to be horrible. Mental health issues and mental illness is constantly swept under the rug by the governing body until something horrible happens that can be used as propaganda for something else. Social media, mainstream media, popular culture constantly tries to jump the shark every single day as it latches onto the most extreme events possible in order to garner attention. Everything is now rage bait, reaction bait, so on forever. This creates a feedback loop from hell as our existing negativity bias bred into us by the same world we grew up in keeps us latched onto the teat of anger, so we all become cogs in the hate machine. We didn't have a choice in it, because, well, look around you, there's so much to hate, isn't there? People who want to or could change things for the better are bogged down by the system until they reach a pivoting point where they're either silenced or bought off with toys, money, and comfort they once wished for them and their peers. But so long as they get theirs, they uncomfortably get their own silver spoon and sit on the throne while the people they came from still suffer. The hate machine tells us what to hate, what to fear, what to think about. Our thoughts are attacked constantly. Everyone is a nervous wreck until our entire thought pattern is full of so much shit, so much negativity, and so much hatred that we're genuinely willing to pay $20 fucking for a tasty drink at a fast food place because, hey, what the hell, you gotta feel something. You might as well throw $20 at that video game microtransaction. The world has gotten so shitty you don't even want to step outside, so you might as well sit on your computer and admire the 3D modeling work the developers put into rendering your character's geometrically perfect butt cheeks while your CPU melts itself trying to render the very same unoptimized piece of shit you've become scientifically addicted to. This is by design. The world is both designed to be shit and addicting. You'd be surprised at how many popular foods in America are banned outside the country because of health concerns. But of course, this doesn't just apply to America, it applies to anywhere still living under the brutal regime of capitalism, but I write from an American perspective. Life is designed to be shit, everything sucks, and the small amount of free time the average working citizen gets is spent on junk food, whether literal overpriced sugary poison or metaphorical junk food like doom scrolling when you should be sleeping because you're spending an hour searching for the one TikTok video that actually makes you feel something. We all know the word, designed to be addicting. The modern digital world is not built to properly serve us, but to keep us doom scrolling like a drug drip feed. The internet is an insane asylum because life is an insane asylum. I'm not saying that feds commandeer sock puppet accounts posing of the most extreme stereotypes of chuds, liberals, and so on, trying to push political disarray so the people in power can keep using the two-party system to keep America enslaved to false promises while we wither away and die from a lifetime of work while hating our neighbor instead of the 1%, but I am saying, hey, it's possible, and it creates a world where people argue over who's really oppressed and spend all that time pointing fingers at each other instead of pointing fingers at the rich kids club above them both that's actually decreasing their quality of life day by day. Hating your neighbors is part of the big game. The algorithm is part of the big game. That's why the internet sucks. And when you get into being on the internet and learn this is how you're supposed to communicate with people, nobody tries to have actual conversations anymore. Every flame war, every argument, even if someone is rage baiting, is always just an excuse to search for validation. Every single insult someone throws online is them reaching out to the void for meaning. It's actually not normal to respond so extremely, so baseline negatively as an instinct, but that's the way the internet is built, and that's the way our life is engineered. You're not supposed to see other profiles as people, you're not supposed to have real life conversations, you're not even supposed to do that in real life. Every debate just becomes a shit-flinging contest where you're trying to jerk yourself off to an invisible audience, trying to reach completion before the other guy can out-jerk you. Everything is a game. When people argue online that the algo wants them to, they're not even really arguing with each other. They just present their argument to an invisible third party and hope people who stumble on their comment chain think that they were the ones in the right. I think the original internet and the free-flowing information and ideas presented itself as a massive, genuine threat to those in power. People were learning, escaping their bubbles, and they were having conversations with each other that weren't already poisoned by the inherent biases they read in the headlines this morning while drinking their morning cup of joe. It was something new, it was a new way to share ideas, it was a new way to meet other people and to have human connections. And that mean it either had to be controlled as quickly as possible or it had to fucking die. Social media often lends its algo to simpler posts that use fewer words because having actual thoughts and discussions is not encouraged. These behavioral patterns were seeded into the digital world, encouraged by its malicious AI algos designed to keep us angry, and now the internet is no longer its own world. It is no longer a place where you adapt a second identity, it is no longer a place where you can live freely, it is no longer a place where you are represented by your avatar and username instead of your real-life face and name. It is no longer a place where you can live a double life. It is no longer a place where you are encouraged to actually interact with people on a fair and balanced level. Everyone wants to be a content creator, even me. Everyone wants to be a superstar, and everyone wants to go viral. We chase trends, enslave ourselves to what the algo decides is popular, bow to common whims, and be less than human. The internet is no longer a place where even nerds and social outcasts can try and make themselves out as, human regardless of their real-life struggles. No one is on the same playing field anymore because we aren't supposed to be. Clout chasing is more important than being human. And when you're on the internet, you are yourself. No second identity. Everything you do on the internet is not anonymous in any way, shape, or form, even if you have an anonymous looking account. The internet has become an extension of our real life selves. That is to say, it is now just as controlled and managed as our regular life experiences. And even in the digital world, we are bound to the same shackles that we are in real life. The internet is not a fun place. It is a globe-spanning mass surveillance state that now works for the corporations and governments instead of offering an alternative. It is estimated that bots make up more than half of all internet traffic, which only gets worse and worse as developments in AI continue. Google accounts for nearly 90% of global traffic redirects, which means the majority of the human population will always only see what Google, a single company, decides is okay for them to see in their own search results. Do you know how many websites there used to be? How many people had their own websites as a hobby, not as part of their job or fucking whatever? There was no sense of exploration anymore. The end goal is for the internet to be a singularity, congealed. In the future, we could all have our own personalized internets and not even know it. We will be even more secluded, and our reality will be based off of what the algo decides to show us, and in many ways that is already the case. Nothing is private, nothing is real, nothing is sacred, and nothing can be anything anymore unless you totally disassociate yourself from the modern world, which means not actively living in society and abandoning literally everything you have around you. Social media has become so intrinsic to being a human in the modern world, it's inescapable. You don't have Instagram, you don't have Twitter, you don't have a YouTube account, you don't use Discord? What are you, some kind of non-person? And of course, I'm not immune. Again, look at me. I'm making this video, uploading it to YouTube with the same username I use in 50 different places because I want to be recognizable as a content creator. Am I foolish for even doing that? In some ways, yes. But even then, I'd still have a YouTube account, I'd still have a Discord account to keep in contact with my friends because we're all trying our hardest not to actually call or text each other anymore. It's just the way the world works. Every bad part about the internet I've highlighted, I truly believe is purposeful, working as intended, working as designed. Alright, let's close this video off. The everything sucks forever theory. Once AI actually reaches a singularity, when we get the full notion of what dead internet theory could truly mean, it might actually be over. Bot accounts that act indistinguishable from humans already, AI-generated pictures and videos of people, real-life looking individuals who are entirely fake, generated in ways that are indistinguishable from a real person. Everything is internet. Everything is computer. Your fridge is smart and has a touchscreen. Your car needs to update before it lets you drive it. Your bed has a Wi-Fi signal and is sending sleep data to the company you bought it from. This is hell. This is digital hell, which is real hell. Now, AI is digital hell, and we're still only on the cusp ever since that first viral meme of shittily AI-generated Will Smith eating spaghetti. Really, it was going down before that, but we've just been taking slow steps to make this hell reality. We are already there, but there's so much deeper we could go. Without capitalism, the internet would not be such a failure. That's something I firmly believe. It was the corporations and capitalistic compromised governments that ruined it. Even today, governments are pushing ID verification, as in upload your real actual ID to a bunch of random websites and companies that you could have used just fine before. Give even more of your information to these companies in ways that are wildly unsafe and unprotected. Even Discord just recently had a troublesome event where private information and IDs they had on a ton of users got leaked, even though the promises were that they don't keep the information once they verify you. Nobody received compensation for this, by the way. We're at the stage where we know we don't keep the information, we don't keep it. It's totally bullshit. Even if every corporation and government out there now has enough information about us to accurately replicate ourselves in a chatbot, enough different pictures of our faces from different angles to feed into machines in order to AI generate anything they want using our exact likeness, I mean, what can you trust anymore? Well, nothing. And if not nothing now, you'll be trusting nothing later, because it doesn't get better from here. Unfortunate, but extremely true. I really do not think it gets better from here. Mostly because even if the steps are taken to walk back some of the worst changes made to the internet as a whole, it would require an extensive level of delusion to believe that the world itself would change enough to warrant that happening in the first place. And on top of that, really, because the damage is already fucking done. Pandora's box has been opened. There is no healing. The internet, at the behest of corpos and feds, gave itself cancer and let itself turn into a carcass for the relentless bot horde to feed on. The life, energy, and soul of the digital world has been drained. We are all dancing around on a husk. We are all prancing around on a big, wide virtual corpse. The American dream is dead, and so is the digital one. In Cyberpunk 2077, the internet, or just the net as it was ultimately destroyed and rendered barely operational on a massive scale by a mix of unstoppable viruses and rogue AIs. Essentially, unchecked expansionism of the digital world caused it to collapse into itself, a lawless wasteland, a dead internet where only uncontrolled AI could claim territory that was massively dangerous to even connect to. A project called the Black Wall permanently sealed off this old internet, rendering any access to its old entry points impossible. Sections of cyberspace were carved out on top of the Black Wall barrier, a multitude of different regions, each trying to be their own blockaded Internet 2.0, with a heavily downscaled and infinitely more controlled digital experience. I do not see something like this as being an impossibility for actual real-world internet. At what point are you supposed to call a corpse and build something new? The internet will internet itself to death and then into a total rebirth, a 2.0 where everyone is back to running their own shit on their own systems. Maybe that's unrealistic. Maybe this dragon can't really die, and the hell we're currently in just gets more and more hell until there's nothing left, and TikTok still exists 1,000 years later in a capitalist uber dystopia, but every video you scroll on is just another AI-generated video of your dead family members telling you to work harder or you won't be able to afford your daily gruel. I don't know. Well, I do know one thing. I don't like it, and as shitty as things are right now, I'm going to appreciate it for what it is, because we have no idea how much worse the world, and by extension the internet, can get. But if we take away anything from this video, know that the internet is an insane asylum because it was built to be one, because the world is an insane asylum, and the people in charge of our real life want us to be crazy. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just capitalism. The best thing that you can do, if I'm going to try and end this on any positive note, God forbid, the best thing that you can do is try to avoid becoming a patient yourself. Don't fall for what you know is rage bait, don't comment on it anyway, don't let the algo turn you into a hate zombie, don't interact with things you don't like, stop interacting with or intentionally seeking content you know will upset you. When someone is mean to you on the internet, understand that the world has made them that way, but that they still suck and that you should just block them. Don't argue. Mute, block, move on, so on. Try and stay a human being even when the world does not want you to be one. Try to be civil even when the world wants you to be uncivil. Try to be reasonable in an unreasonable world. Maybe, unlikely, but maybe if we all hold hands and sing a kumbaya together, things can be a little bit more okay. Maybe. I hope I have accurately answered the question the title of the video originally proposed. I hope that my after midnight writing sessions and word salads meant something to you. Thank you for watching, and good night. Testing, 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 testing.
If you drink all the coffee, I'll kill you.